الحمد لله الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله حمد كثير طيبا مبارك فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. Recently, brothers and sisters, I bumped into an old friend of mine who happened to study in a land that I never been to, and he never studied in the lands that I never been to. And he said something to me which was really strange after seeing him after a long time. And he told me, basically trying to say that the place where he studied is more beautiful and the scholars are bigger and the knowledge is more pure there. He said to me, he goes, Akhi, you have to suffer to get the knowledge. And I said to him, brother, since I became a Muslim, I've been suffering from day one. I come from mid-class Christianity family. Father was doing really well. I became a Muslim. Since then, ya ikhwan, I quit my job at the liquor store, and that job now is worth more than $100,000. So the brother said to me, you have to suffer to get the knowledge. So when we look at the situation, brothers, since then, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, as you know, that I'm a college dropout, and I'm glad to say that I'm a college dropout because I became an autodidactic, and I became a bibliophile, and I became an author, a fashion mogul, and many other things. Meaning that I wasn't stepped into somebody's pigeonhole on how the world has to look at it, ya ikhwan. So I'm coming from a background of street knowledge and academia. And today, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, for those brothers that stay here today, you're going to learn something, inshallah ta'ala. You're going to learn something. For those that want to run away and go watch the basketball game or the soccer game or go get tea or go get food, mashallah, you're not going to get any benefit from the notes that we prepared. Mashihal, no problem. La ba's ilayk. So, as we know, ya ikhwan, there's a famous ibarah that the poet said. And this is where we're at as a ummah, ya ikhwan. This is where we're at. إِذَا كُنْتَ لَا تَدْرِي فَتِلْكَ مُصِيبَةٌ وَإِنْ كُنْتَ تَدْرِي فَالْمُصِيبَةُ أَعْظَمَ. Guess it'd be better if I put on my spectacles. There you go. Now we can see. If you do not know, meaning if you don't have the proper knowledge, then that is a calamity. To be jahil is a calamity, to be ignorant about your religion. But what is worse than that, as the poet goes on to say, is that if you know, if you have the knowledge, you know the Arabic, you memorize the Quran, and you don't practice what you know, then this is tremendously worse, ya ikhwan. And this is the situation of the Muslims. Been on the ground, in the trenches for more than 30 years. And we have experience watching the Muslim kids do things they shouldn't do, which ends them up inside of the penitentiaries, the prisons, and all those types of places. And then when you talk to the parent, who mashallah may be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a real estate investor, we don't know what was wrong. We sent our kid, Abdullah, to Sunday Quran class every year for 4 years, and he memorized 7 juz of Quran, mashallah, tabarakallah. But he's a drug dealer. How did he become a drug dealer? Oh, the Jamaicans, they made him become a drug dealer. The Spanish, they made him become a drug dealer. The Italians, they made Abdullah become a drug dealer. No, Abdullah became a drug dealer because number one, the father didn't do his job. Number two, the studies that he was learning didn't help prepare him to be in a Western country. Many of my beloved brothers, you came from the great lands of the Muslims to come here, and you never factored that things that happen here don't necessarily happen in the lands of the Muslims on the level that they do here. This is where street knowledge comes, brothers. Knowledge from the street, what is known as knowledge of self. I'm a graduate from Malcolm X University. Malcolm X University. When I read his autobiography, at that time, nobody from the Muslim world came and gave me dawah. Nobody from the Muslim world came and said to me, let me teach you about Allah. I learned about Islam through him and his progression as he went and he traveled after being in the Nation of Islam. He went over to Mecca, he went to Sudan and many other Muslim countries, and he met the Muslim brothers there, and they taught him the Sunnah. And then unfortunately, rahmatullahi alayhi, they took his life, they unalived him. But at that time, he obtained a bunch of scholarships in Medina, Mecca, and Al-Azhar University. in 1960s. So I'm one of his students, even though I never met him. I read his autobiography and it had a profound effect on my life. So the issue, my dear brothers and sisters, is when we look at the situation, as our title of our lecture is, how much knowledge have you accumulated? Now many people, when they look at the situation, they think that that means kathratul riwayah. You can quote many things. MashaAllah, that's for you. But now what about you practicing and then showing the fruits of that? So when we look at the situation, and I'm going to ask some questions here to our young brothers. You're in school? Okay. Who else? You in school? Okay, so let's look at this now. Did you go to kindergarten? Did you go to senior kindergarten? Junior kindergarten? Did you go to grade 1? Grade 2? Grade 3? Grade 4? Grade 5? Grade 6? Not yet. Grade 7? Grade 8? Not yet. Let's see here. Grade 9? Grade 10? Grade 11? Grade 12? Then you graduate. MashaAllah, you've reached the apex of knowledge. You now have a high school degree. That's what I have, high school degree. Alhamdulillah. Then if you have some money, see, you can't go and get no more education for free. You got to pay to get educated. You got to pay money to go to an institution and sit and go to the classes and do the work. After 4 years, unless you go to college, then you can get a degree. It's called a BA. Then again, you got to come up with some more money. And then, what do you do after you get the money? You pay the money, and then you can go for something called an MA, a master's degree. But you have to have money. If you don't got the money, you can't. There's no scholarships like that in Canada. It's not like the States where you can, be a cheerleader and get a full scholarship, or be a drummer and get a full scholarship in the States. We don't have that here. And then, if you're fortunate enough, you have the money, you can go to school, pay some more money, and you can get a PhD. So, how much knowledge have you accumulated? Now, we have our whole life to learn something about Islam, but we have to be balanced and learn some secular knowledge at the same time so we can provide for our family. Who agrees to that? You got to provide for the family, right? So Islamic knowledge not only is good for your akhirah, but what about the deen? Can we learn something about business? Can we learn something about business? Yes or no? In Islam. When was the last time you guys seen a class on Kitab al-Buyur? Studying business in the religion. This is something that I haven't seen in many years. So looking at the situation, brothers, yesterday as I gave the khutbah, I was saying to the brothers, and let's just see how much knowledge that the brothers accumulate. Who here likes math? Put up your hand. Who likes math? Check it around. Okay, check this out. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's 4 and sometimes 5 Jummahs in the month. Is that correct? Is that right? Okay, let's round it off. Let's just say it's 4 Jummahs a month. So each Jummah khutbah is about 30 minutes. Is that correct? 30 minutes, right? By the time the Imam gets up, says Salaam Alaikum, they call the Adhan, and then he says, okay, Akim as-Salat. Right? So in and about there, about 30 minutes. Is that correct? Roughly, right? Okay, so 30 minutes times 4 Jumu'ahs equals how many hours? 2 hours. How many months is there in a year, Sheikh? Months. 12. So 2 times 12 is what? 24. 24 hours of Jummah khutbah. MashaAllah. Guess how many days that is in the year? 24 hours. It's 1 day. Think about this, brothers. 1 day of the year you come for Jumu'ah when you add it all up. So how can you learn a lot at that time? See, because it's not far now. The people that ran away, they're going to drink tea or do something else, right? They don't think they can learn from a new Muslim. It's aib. Wallahi, you can learn a lot. I still learn from Malcolm X. I had better Arabic than Malcolm X. I know more Quran than Malcolm X. But every day I learn something from him about life that even my father didn't teach me. So you can still learn. So watch now. If you look at it now, when you come to the masjid, can you just come right in or you have to find parking first? You have to find parking. So does that stop you? You lose a few minutes from the khutbah sometimes? So what happens now, you're rushing from work, you got to now use the washroom. Now you got to go use the washroom for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Again, the facilities, may Allah bless the brothers here to build a bigger masjid. Then after that, you got to make wudu. Again, that's another 2-3 minutes. Then when you come up, guess what you got to do? You got to pray what? Rakatain, right? So again, that's another 2 minutes. So by the time you sit down and you listen to the Imam, he's like, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I'm sitting now for Jilsa Istiraha, I'm going to sit down now and start the second khutbah. So you missed the whole khutbah. Then the Imam says something, you're like, what is this Imam talking about? Because you missed the first part of the khutbah, you don't understand the second part of the khutbah. And this happens all over the Muslim world. So here's my question. How much knowledge, and I'm asking myself, have we accumulated? So here's some ayat for us to eat before we get into the big lecture. I'm going to give you guys a surprise, inshallah ta'ala. You're going to see somebody else come up here and give a lecture in a minute, all right? Just wait a few minutes and you're going to see somebody else give a lecture, all right? Because there's two guys up here. There's the street guy and then there's the religious guy. You're going to see him soon. Just be patient, okay? Just wait and see, Sheikh, all right? You don't see anybody else teaching like this. You're going to see in a minute. Just be patient. Qala Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala goes on to say, Kul hal yastawi al-a'ma wal-basar afala tatafakkarun. Say, are they blind? And the seeing, are they equal? The one who is blind and the one who can see, this is a parable, are they equal? They're not equal, right? So if you have the ability to read, then you can learn so much. Allah Ta'ala goes on to say in another ayah, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. We taught him knowledge from us. So the knowledge, the ilm comes from who? Allah. The Prophet went on to say, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. Knowledge is learned through studying. You have to sit in a circle of knowledge with somebody. You don't gotta like me. It could be some great sheikh from overseas, from your country. Go sit with the sheikh, learn from him, benefit. You don't gotta learn from me. I'm born in Toronto. My father's born in Toronto. My grandfather's born in Toronto. And a Toronti, Aslan. Okay, I'm born and raised here. I'm not gonna change for anybody else. What you see is what you get. Allah Ta'ala goes on to say in another ayah, وَعَلَّمَكَ مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ تَعْلَمُ. Allah taught you what you did not know. So is there more for you to learn? Brother, is there more for you to learn? Ask me, is there more for me to learn? Yes, I got so much more to learn. There's so much to learn. I'm jahil. Can you say that, Sheikh? Can you say you're jahil? Are you jahil, Sheikh?
Yeah, I'm jahil.
Are you jahil? Sheikh, are you jahil? Who here can say that they're jahil? Put up your hand. If you think you're jahil, put up your hand. Some brothers are not putting up their hand. Okay, there's jahil basit, a little bit of ignorance, and there's jahil murakkib, compounded ignorance. Do you think the Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our time that we're a little bit jahil or a whole lot jahil? What do you think? The whole Ummah. We got a lot of work. That means we got a lot of work to do, right? That means we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. Allah Ta'ala goes on to say, and this ayah everybody knows, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. They have no knowledge except what Allah Ta'ala, what He wills. So, who here was entertained? Were you entertained? Okay, well now the time for entertainment is done. The fun is about to begin. The Sheikh is coming now. See, that was the street guy. Now, because see, now this is how it is. If you don't dress with a gutra in Islam means that you have some sort of piety. Okay, there's people that I know that they wear this and all of a sudden people think they're more pious because they have a gutra. See, now the Sheikh is here now. Now we're going to get real deep. Right? You guys are entertained or what? You guys are entertained? Now look, see I got my gutra on. This is my special gutra that I got 25 years ago in the country of Egypt. So now I look like a sheikh, right? Now you'll take some knowledge from me. Before you don't want to take from the street guy, right? Okay, now we're going to get deep. And it can go deeper than this, but I only have 2 sets of knowledge here. Okay? One is about the Quran. Who wants to know about the Quranic sciences? Put up your hand. Who wants to know about the Sunnah sciences? Put up your hand. Okay, so now the sheikh is here. So here we go, the Quran. And this blew my mind when I heard about it, and I have it in another book, but I summarized it here. This is summarized, brothers. This is summarized. How much knowledge have you accumulated? All right. Number 1, the major sciences of the Quran, which is called Ulum al-Quran. From the first thing is al-Wahi, revelation, right? Revelation. understanding how revelation came to the Prophet ﷺ, meaning the forms, the stages, and the types. Wahi, that's a science all within itself. Tariq al-Quran, the history of Quran, how the Quran was revealed, compiled, preserved, and written. That's a science within itself. That's a science. Asbab al-Nuzul. Some who heard of Asbab al-Nuzul? Put up your hand before. Nobody. Events or situations that cause certain ayats to be revealed. This is a science in Islam about the Quran. Mecca and Madani, okay? Knowing which ayats are from Mecca and which ayats are from Medina. And if the laws changed or if they were abrogated, okay? This is a science. Qira'at al-Quran, modes of recitation. The 10 authentic recitation styles and the difference between them. This is very important. And this is where the Ummah has been stuck in these only Quranic sciences, in my opinion. It's my opinion. Tajweed rules, which are important. How to properly recite the letters and elongation stops and so on and so forth. This is important, but this is where the Ummah has stopped. Let's continue. Ijaz al-Quran. The immobility, the miraculous nature of the verses of the Quran, linguistic, scientific, historical, prophetic miracles of the Quran. That's a science within itself. Gharib al-Quran, meanings of rare, difficult, or unusual Arabic words in the Quran. This is a science. Here's what I was studying in Morocco 5 years ago. It made my head into mashed potatoes when I was there. It's called I'rab al-Quran. Farah, my ustada, much older than me, she used to drill me on this every day, and up until today, I didn't understand anything. Meaning it's hard, you forget it after a while. How the sentences are grammatically structured. This is I'rab al-Quran. Then there's one I'm trying to get my teacher, he started the class and then he stopped. Balagha, rhetoric in the Quran. The eloquence, the metaphors, the styles, the literary beauty of the Quran. This is a science in Islam. You ever heard any classes about this? Probably not, right? Nasikh wal mansukh. The abrogated verses. A verse came and it abrogated another verse. Verses whose rulings were replaced by later verses. This is a science within Islam. Tafsir al-Quran. They're interpreted using the Quran by the Sunnah, what the companions said, the language of the Arabs, and what they call the juristic reasoning, ijtihad. This is a science of Quran that we need to learn. Ta'wil, deep interpretation, understanding the symbolic or multi-layered meanings. That's a science within itself. For big mufassirin is way above my head. As you see, I'm still a street guy. I don't know how to get the gutra looking properly, see. I don't like the gutra, but I just put it on so maybe more people will see there's someone with the gutra, they'll drive by and they'll come in, they'll sit. Ahkam al-Quran, the legal rulings. Islamic law derived by Quranic verses, the ahkam of Quran. This is a science. 15, Amthil al-Quran, the parables. The parables of the Quran, understanding the metaphors and the moral stories of the Quran. This is a science. Al-Qasas al-Quran. These are other stories. Stories of the prophets, the earlier nations, and the lessons derived. Then there is Mujmal or Mufassil, brief verse, detailed verses that are summarized verse, fully explained verses. Right? Now, this is something, brothers, that when you sit and they say to you, you have to study the Quran. There's different sciences to study the Book of Allah. And I met a brother who was a master of I'rab al-Quran. And he also was Hafiz, but nobody knew the technicality of how strong he was. They just praised him because he was Hafiz the Quran, which is a good thing, alhamdulillah. That within itself is a meritorious thing. But him knowing the I'rab al-Quran means he really understands the structure of it. Mutlaq wa muqayyid, unrestricted versus restricted, general rules versus rules that have conditions. This is a science within ulum al-Quran. Then there comes this verse, or this, what one of my sheikhs taught me 30 years ago, am versus khas, the general versus the specific verses. Verses that address everyone versus specific groups and situations. That's a science within itself. Muhkam and mutashabih, the clear verses versus with verses with multiple possible meanings. And this is where the Muslims, they get in trouble sometimes. They go on some weird stuff. I've heard people make weird tafsir. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, woe to those who pray. So there, akhi, Allah said, I don't have to pray. Akhi, this is a deviant tafsir you're giving. What's the verse before? What's the verse after? Right? Yes, you're quoting Quran, but you're switching the meaning. Fawassil and fasaha, rhythmic ending words and linguistic clarity. Then comes Rasam al-Musahif, the orthography of the Quran, the writing style of the companions in the Uthmani script. I have a Quran in my car that it has what they call it Khat al-Maghribi, but it's really al-Khat al-Iraqi or Baghdadi, because when the Arabs, they traveled all the way from those lands and they went across northern Africa, they settled. The Khat of the Quran that I have with the Abjad system, Arabic, that's another whole thing. It looks weird to the Muslims, but that's the original. I wish I could show you guys. Right? That's the original way that it was written. Dabt al-Mushaf, the vowelization and the diacritics, the little marks on the Quran. Okay, that's what I was talking about. How vowels, dots, and markings were added for the non-Arab like me and those who aren't originally Arabs. Okay, are you guys learning anything? Should I continue? Because we didn't even get to the Sunnah yet. You guys, should I continue? You guys want this information or no? Sheikh, you want to learn? All right, mashallah. Mawdu' al-Quran, the themes of the Quran. Major topics such as beliefs, law, morality, and stories. Let me take this off because maybe they don't like that guy. Maybe put on this hat here. Maybe they like the street guy better. I don't know. Jadal al-Quran, Quranic argumentation, how the Quran debates, refutes, and proves points. This is a big thing right now. This Jadal al-Quran. If you look online right now, the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things on the internet right now, is Muslims debating Christians. It's the biggest thing now. Oh, wow. Ooh, a Muslim just crushed a Christian. To me, it's a nothing burger. Brother, go learn your deen. Go learn all these sciences. Don't worry about the Christians. You don't need to give them dawah. You need to learn your religion first. You need to know who Allah is. Asma'ihi wa sifatihi wa datihi wa af'alihi. Allah, His names, His attributes, His essence, and His actions. This is something that we need to learn. Okay, next one is adab tilawat Quran, the etiquette in reciting the Quran. Can I take a cucumber, eat it? Can I do that? Can I eat a cucumber and recite Quran at the same time? Right, so there's etiquettes, right, to the Quran, right? Aqsam al-Quran, the oaths in the Quran. Understanding the oaths of Allah makes their meanings. There's oath. There's oaths. Well, Allah promises certain things. This is a science. Also, istimal al-a'rab, the Arabic linguistic usage. Arabic idioms, expressions, and stories used in the revelation. So for instance, there's certain words that if you were to ask the average Arab, what does this word mean? They wouldn't know. It means that they got to go and open up a dictionary and look up the old dictionary from 1,000 years ago and see what the word meant 1,000 years ago to understand what it meant. This means you got to have the books, or you got to at least look it up online to see what this meant, or else even the best of the Arabs, they don't understand. So what about a person like me who's not an Arab at all? Al-Wa'ad wal-Wa'id, the promise and the warning, verses of mercy versus verses of punishment. We need to be focusing on that right now. Because since I became a Muslim, 1991, I took my Shahada. And since then to now, وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ سَمَهُ اللَّهُ إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The Muslim world has been suffering from the time I became a Muslim. Almost every week, we have to send money here, send money there, which we should be doing. But I'm looking, when is the Izzah coming? And as Ibn Taymiyyah went on to say, a very beautiful antidote, which I memorized, alhamdulillah. He said, إِذَا تَفَرَقَ الْقَوْمِ فَاسَدُوا وَحَلَكُوا وَاجْتَمَعُوا مَلَكُوا وَصَلَهُوا فَإِنَّ جَمَاءَ رَحْمَةً وَفُرْقَ عَذَابٍ. Okay, that was the entertainment there for you guys. That's a line of poetry, all right? That if the community, they separate and they fragment, then there'll be adhab and punishment. But if they come together, there'll be kingdoms and descendancy. With the jama'ah is rahmah, and with splitting is punishment. Now my question is, brothers, How many Muslims live on the earth? How many Muslims live on the earth? Huh? 2 million. No, Sheikh, that's just in in Nigeria they got 2 million people. 2 billion. 2 billion Muslims. 2 billion Muslims? And we can't do nothing. We can't do nothing. All right, we're almost finished the Quran part here. Fada'il al-Quran, the virtues of the Quran, the benefits of the Quran, the rewards for reading it, memorizing, and acting upon it. Now that's just the Quran. I have here stuff about the Sunnah. I don't know, you guys should I continue or, I don't know, you guys want to know about, I'm not talking about fiqh, I'm not talking about aqidah, I'm not talking about Arabic language or tariq or sulu fiqh or qanoon. These are just the Quran and the Sunnah. There's more stuff that we could cover, but should we continue or no? I don't know, you guys don't look like, maybe the basketball game is on, I don't know. Nobody wants to learn. See, this shows you how ignorant we are. I am an ignorant man, but I have to have some juhud and study my religion. Man salaka tariqan yaltamisu fihi ilman sahala Allahu bihi ila tariqan ila jannah aw kama qala sallallahu. That whoever seeks a path or traverse a path to seek knowledge, Allah will make the path to paradise easy. But the sheikh is in Scarborough. He's too far. Let the sheikh, whoever the big sheikh is, let him come to our masjid right here in Mississauga. So I only have to travel 5 miles up the road. The sheikh traveled thousands of miles from his country to come, and if you could sit at the feet of the sheikh, whoever the sheikh is, for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, something special happens. While we're sitting here in the masjid, we're discussing the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. What we heard from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is that the angels come and they put their wings around us. Is that a beautiful thing? That's good enough, right, Sheikh? Then what happens is the rahmah comes down on us, and then the sakina comes upon us. But guess what? Wallahi, if you go to the Muslim restaurants right now, I've been there myself. I'm not trying to say that I don't go to the restaurants. I go to the restaurants and I like to eat. I'm a foodie. If you go to the Muslim restaurants, especially down at Ridgeway right now, you'll find probably at least 20,000 Muslims there right now. I gotta eat. I gotta eat. I gotta get something to eat. I like to get something to eat too. And we'll spend hundreds of dollars and fight and break each other up, and push people down and almost drive over sisters. I've seen it over there. Who here has been to Ridgeway before? Have you seen that activity? Right? Probably 95% of the people that go there are Muslim. I almost got hit 3 times. I had to bring my mother there one time with her friend, and I told her we came at the right time. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody's here. So we're able to get her in and get her out. I would never bring her there now. Okay, so should we now talk about the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? You want to learn about the Sunnah? You came in to learn, right, Sheikh? All right, let's go. Let's continue. The Sunnah. The major science is the Hadith, what is known as Al-Ulum al-Hadith, which I just went to a seminar a couple of weeks ago with a brother who has a master's degree in Hadith. Ilm al-Hadith, which is called Riwayatayn, the narrations. The study of what was narrated, the wording, the chains in the text. This is a science within itself. Ilm al-Hadith, Dirayatayn. Understanding the analysis, the methodology of analyzing the hadith authentically, classifying its rulings. This is a big science. Okay, the science is related to the chain. Who said, so-and-so said, that so-and-so said, that so-and-so said, that so-and-so said. Okay, this is called the isnad. Then there's ilm al-isnad. Study the transmission chains, how they link and their strength to be able to grade it. This is a science within itself. Then there's something called ilm al-rijal. The biographies of the narrators. The biographies of the narrators, where they were born, who they met, who they studied with, who their shuyukh were from, and who they narrated from. This is a big science. Then there's a science that people misunderstood in our city for the last 20 years. It came down here and it caused a lot of problems. Many of you brothers, you don't know, but I know. The science, what is known as a jarh wa ta'dil. This is the science of criticism and praising. But it's supposed to be the hadith scholars praising and criticizing the people in hadith, not the individuals like this and so forth. So the science, the people came and they took this science, they found a way, and they destroyed Muslim communities all over the world based on the misunderstanding of the science and the reason it was constructed. Right? Determining if the narrator is trustworthy, if he's weak, if he's a liar, if he's precise, or he's careless. This is science. Imam Mu'amir, those who live extremely long and they narrated extensively. Those people that have a higher tabaqa. Ilm Mu'ayyin and Musalsalah, special types of chains. Mu'ayyina and Fulan. Musala, repeated patterns and chains, the same action word, right? This is a big science. These are hadith sciences. So the person who studies the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he has a certain respect to him, ya ikhwan. What is known as Ahl al-Hadith. Ahl al-Hadith is really important because now we live in a time where people, they try to say, we don't like the Sunnah, we don't need the Sunnah, we can practice the Quran without the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah. There's a movement of people that are doing this. You have to be careful. Also, there's ilm al-tabaqa, classifying narrators into generations, like the Sahaba, then the Tabi'een, then the Atba' Tabi'een. Sciences related to the text. Okay, we're almost done. Gharib al-Hadith, explaining strange or uncommon words. Certain words come up, you got to go and read what that word meant. The scholars that know certain words. For instance, if I say the word sunnah, people that only classify it to mean bab al-fiqh, but it could have other meanings. It could mean aqidah, it could mean the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It has different meaning. You just have to know when the sheikh is speaking, what did he mean when he said that word. Also, mukhtalaf al-hadith, explaining the seemingly contradictory narrations. One hadith says this hadith says that. Now, is that for me to explain? No, you got to go to the scholars who specialize in the science. Mushkil al-hadith, difficult or unusual narrations that need a deeper explanation. There's books on this, brothers, and I've seen them, and it's over my head, and it should be over your head. But know that these sciences exist. In al-hadith, and I met one scholar when I was in Egypt who specializes in this. Hidden defects in narrations that affect the authenticity. He can just look at the hadith and he can show you where the defect is. That's how skilled he is in hadith. One of the hardest sciences, Imam Ahmed, Ali ibn al-Madini, and Ibn Rajab, they mastered this science. I'm going to get to a big point and I'm going to learn a new word, inshallah. I promise you, you're going to learn a new word, okay? Nasikh wal mansukh, identifying the narrations that abrogate others. We mentioned that before, but that was about hadith. Quran. This now is about hadith. Number 14, ziyadatul thiqah, additions by trustworthy narrators and when they are accepted. The classification of the sciences. That's a science. Hadith sahih. The hadith is sahih, akhi. Everybody heard about that? Hadith hasan. The hadith is hasan. Hadith da'if. Weak narrations and their grades. Hadith mawdu'. Fabricated hadiths and signs of forgery. Somebody faked the hadith. For instance, they say that somebody that we love drank a Coca-Cola and said Alhamdulillah. We know that that's batil. No prophet ever said drink a Coca-Cola and say Bismillah. Right? So that's forgery. Anybody that comes with that. Mutawatir, narrated by a massive number at each level. Okay? Only 2 more pages and we're done this here. Number 20, Hadith Ahad, narrated by only one of the few narrators. One person said it. Abu Bakr, Omar, someone like that. They said the Prophet said that. Hey, that's good enough for me. Abu Bakr said it. Omar said it. Hey, alhamdulillah, man, I'm rocking with that. Marfu, Mawquf, and Maqtu'. Marfu to the Prophet ﷺ. Mawquf to the companion. Maqtu' to the tabi'i. Okay, this is the science. Musnad, Mursal, Munqata, Mudal, Mudallis. Different forms of disconnected chains, sciences of transmission. 23. Turuq al-Hadith, passive narrations and supporting evidence. Number 24, this is important. Ilm al-Mashayikh, indexes of the teachers and the students. Who was Imam Bukhari's big teacher? He had many of them that encouraged him to write Sahih Bukhari. Does anybody know? Close. He's one of them. Right. So he had shuyukh that were above him. And when he finished it, he gave it to them to critique it. I think about 11 or 12 shuyukh looked at his work and gave tawqir, mashallah, they signed off on it. Okay? We call it now university, even though I didn't go to university. I never went there, but I teach in universities all the time, and colleges, alhamdulillah. It's called peer review. Someone who's on your level or higher, they look at your work and they see if it's good or not, and they give you tawqir, right? Okay. Turuq al-hadith, passive narrations and supporting evidences. We did that already. Okay, ilm al-atraf, locating the hadith by part of its wording. They came out maybe with 20 years ago, a software where you can just type in a couple words and it comes down on the computer. Before, you have to pull out a whole bunch of books. You see these books here, they got lots of dust in them. Hardly anybody picks up these books and reads it. This is Kanz min al-Kunuz right here. I'm going to say something and I'm going to say the reality, brothers. If you go down to the U of T, okay, they have a big, huge Arabic library there. They got all kinds of libraries. The people that run that university, they upkeep that library and they go to Muslim fairs every year and they purchase all the Muslim books of the new scholars, and they have what they call rare bakhtutat, manuscripts of the Muslims, the people that run those universities. They have our books and they respect them and look after them and store them more than we do. They value them more than we do. And they read them. They're professors. Yeah, it's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. Okay, we're almost done here. So that's Ilm Atraf is located. Okay, writing and preservation is called tasnif. Compilation, checking manuscripts, the difference between different books, commentary sciences. Then there's the sharh of the hadith. So what's the difference if somebody gives you an ayah, you say, what's the tafsir of that, brother? But you don't say, what's the tafsir of a hadith? You see, you got to know the language. You say, what's the sharh of that hadith? You see how it's like that? Is there a sharh of the ayah? No, that's not the language we use. For the ayah, it's tafsir. For the hadith, it's sharh or shurahat. You see? This is important. Okay. Fiqh al-hadith. Understanding the legal and spiritual rulings inside the hadith. Okay, we're almost done. Adab al-sami', adab al-tahammul. Etiquettes of learning, teaching, transmitting hadith. Then there's the sciences connected to a specific book. So Bukhari has a book, Abu Dawood has a book, Imam Muslim has a book, other Imams have books. There's sometimes a muqaddimah added to it, or there's other explanation. Before you even get running into the book, there's a certain methodology you got to understand how he wrote the book and the reason why he wrote the book and in the time he wrote the book. Can't just go into the book haphazardly. You need a murabbi, a sheikh to teach you these books. Just like if you go to university, you can't just pick up the accounting book and try to figure it out all by yourself, right? You need a murabbi, you need a sheikh. Also, we're almost done here, the Imam Rijal of the 6 books, and there's more than that, right? The names of the men in the books like Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, An-Nasai, Ibn Majah. The last one is the Mustala al-Hadith terminology, the overall system, the technical system. Do you know anybody that has mastered more than 5 of these sciences? Can anybody name me anybody that you know in North America that's mastered 5 of these? Mastered them. It's a big thing, right? So there's a word that they use in academia. It's called, here's a new word. I want you to learn this word. It's called a polymath. A polymath. You heard that word before? Anybody heard that word before? A polymath. I just learned this about 10 years ago. Then there's another word. Has nothing to do with this. I just learned this about 10 years ago. A polyglot. A polymath and a polyglot. The polymath is one of the old sheikhs from 1,000 years ago who knows all these sciences that we mentioned and more than that, in and out. They're a scholar in each one of those sciences, they're a scholar. So they give them the title, and we know it as Sheikh al-Islam, Sheikh of the Sheikhs of Islam. In English, you call that a polymath. They've mastered multiple sciences. Okay? In the English world, meaning that you know engineering, and you know French, and you know English, and you know trigonometry, and you know algebra, and you know, that would be a polymath. Okay? Some of the so-called founding fathers of North America, they consider them polymaths. Okay? So the question is, how much knowledge have we accumulated in our life? This is a question, brothers. How much knowledge? This is a question we have to ask ourselves. And what's the polyglot? The polyglot is someone who speaks more than 4 languages. Then you have another term, I think it's a super polyglot, and then there's one higher than that. I met, when I was in Egypt 25 years ago, a super polyglot, young Somali girl. She spoke 12 languages, and I was teaching her English 2 days a week. This was the 13th language that she was learning. And she was half of the Quran at the same time. Her dad was a really rich engineer, and he lived all over the world, and he used to pay for the kids to learn different languages. So now my question is, when you go for a job, and when she goes for a job, when they look at her education, and when they look at my education, who's probably going to get the job? Probably her, right? So not only does she have secular knowledges, she learned languages. She could probably work for the UN. She also is Hafiz of Quran. So it shows you, brothers, that there is a balance. The deen over the dunya, not the dunya over the deen. And for me, you know, there's been some critique of me recently from an old friend of mine. We're not talking anymore. Sometimes brothers, they do that. They don't talk after a while. And I told the brother, I said, listen, Akhi, I used to work at the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. I used to sell alcohol before I became a Muslim. When I became a Muslim, my father kicked me out of his house because he said, you're an idiot. And he said some other really bad words. Do you know how much money this job will set you up for the rest of your life? I said, no, Dad, I can't. I'm Muslim now. I can't sell alcohol. I can't buy alcohol. I can't drink alcohol. I can't do any of those things. My dad said, you know what? He said some really bad words. Get out of my house. I got kicked out of my house that I lived in my father's house, because I didn't want to sell alcohol and make a lot of money. So the brother recently said to me, brother, you came into Islam because you want to do this and you want to do that. And he said a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, Akhi, how dare you say that to your brother, man? You don't know what's in my heart. Does he know what's in my heart, Sheikh? Sheikh, does that brother know what's in my heart? Does he know what's in my heart, Sheikh? That brother who said that, does he know what's in my heart? Only Allah knows what's in my heart. Is that correct? Nobody knows what's in anybody's heart. But what we could do is we could judge from people's behavior. So I stopped talking to that brother because he insulted me. I'm like, brother, if that's what our behavior has become, you're supposed to have something called husnul dhan. Is that right, Sheikh? You should have always an excuse for your brother. Your brother didn't come to the masjid. There's one brother, he said to me, brother, you're still Muslim. We haven't seen you at Masjid Farouk in so long. Brother, you're still Muslim. We haven't seen you at Cooper's Masjid for so long, in this masjid, that masjid. I said, yeah, brother, I'm still Muslim, alhamdulillah. I'm not always hanging out in the masjid. Sometimes I'm in one of the musallas, one of the coffee houses that has a musalla. Sometimes I'm at my office. Sometimes I'm north with my mother. Sometimes I'm doing dawah in the street. Sometimes I'm downtown. Do I have to come to the masjid and hang out with you all the time to be a good Muslim? So this is the mentality of the Muslims. So recently, inshallah ta'ala, this is the ending point. I got to give this to Sheikh Muhammad. We came out with a new book we're trying to publish called I Just Took Shahada, Now What? So for the new Muslims that come into Islam, and I've heard people say, Sheikh, who's here? Sheikh, you're Arab? I've heard people, Sheikh, Arab? I heard brothers say, هذا الرجل ما عنده العلم. This man, he doesn't have knowledge. So, you know, I quoted to those brothers after وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي الْعِلْمِ الْعَلِيمِ. I quoted that back to them. That if I don't have no knowledge, then above you there's someone that has more knowledge that'll look at you and think that you don't have no knowledge. Is that true? So وَمَا أُتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You have been given of knowledge except a little. All of us have little knowledge. But here's the good point, brothers. إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمِ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. As we said before. Knowledge is learned through study. But guess what the Quran says? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who have Iman and they do the good deeds. Imam Bukhari in his Sahih, he has a chapter called Bab al-Ilm qabla al-Qawli wal-Amal. In Sahih Bukhari, it's a very, very known chapter. That chapter, you have to have knowledge before you do the actions. So you'll see some Muslims sometimes doing some weird things. And I lived in a Muslim country, and I seen some things that amazed me. When I went to that masjid, I could hear the most beautiful recitation of the Quran. MashaAllah. Beautiful. Mutqin kira'ah. The noon sakin and the ghunna and the ikhfa and all that, mashallah. Perfect, Shaykh. But I went into this masjid, and I went with a couple brothers just to observe. And I seen in the masjid brothers making sujood to the grave of Sheikh Fulan who died 300 years ago. And all throughout this country, there's masajid, and the grave is right there, or Sheikh Fulan is buried right beside the grave. Medina, that's a different story. Prophet ﷺ is buried there, and it's different. So, I thought that was it. And I'm like, the brothers recite so beautiful, but they didn't understand anything. And this is why knowledge is important. I get to the point. قال الله تعالى إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. What does that mean, Sheikh? Do you know what it means? You heard it before? You know, Sheikh, you got to teach them what it means. It means إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. Only you, Allah, we worship. And only you, Allah, we ask for help and sustenance and forgiveness. So here are these brothers with this beautiful qira'ah, Shaykh, that if you were to pray behind them, you'd probably shed some tears because the qira'ah is very powerful. Making shirk akbar in the masjid. Shirk akbar, mukhrij min al-millah. Now I'm coming from Christianity, where we used to worship Isa ibn Maryam, or we were taught to worship Isa ibn Maryam. He's a prophet. We're told that that's shirk. Now you go to the land of the Muslims, and someone less than Isa ibn Maryam, the Muslims are worshiping. Is this just in one country, Sheikh, or is it in multiple countries? One country only, Sheikh? The Muslims that have Qubur in the masjid, only in one country? How many countries? So now we're saying, oh Allah, help us. Oh Allah, help us. We need help. We're struggling. Oh Allah, help us. So it shows you how much knowledge have we really accumulated. Ila qalilan. So that means what? We gotta go back to the drawing board and pretend that we're brand new Muslims like the Sahaba, and come into Islam with fresh eyes, fresh hearts, and fresh souls, and begin again with that. هذا ما عندي وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. If there's any quick questions, inshallah, we'll take maybe one or two. Inshallah, as I know the brothers that want to go out and get some food, like I'm trying to go get some food too. Any quick questions? No questions? Okay, Sheikh, Faddal. Next one, Sheikh.
Sheikh, you say about the